lounging, son.
All right, welcome back to the Comic Lounge. My name is Ryan, and back with me again, my awesome co-host Manny. And today we're going to be talking about a book that has been very, very important to me since it launched a couple years ago. Manny and I have been talking about wanting to do this. So the book we're going to be talking about today is Nightwing. It's by Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo, and it's the first volume of their run called Leaping into the Light. Why it's important to me is because like Nightwing's been one of my favorite characters for a very long time. Like going back to when I was a kid. Dick Grayson has always been like him and Tim Drake together kind of have been like my favorite sidekicks of Batman. Jason Todd never really cared for. Damian I still could really give two shits about. I mean, he's good at moments, but you know, that run in the 90s was just like I didn't miss an issue. Like I always looked for that. And I didn't like what they did with Dick Grayson for a while. I was not a fan of what DC did with the whole Rick Grayson. So when I heard Tom Taylor was going to be launching the book, I was like, dude, yes. Like I already knew it was going to be good because I was a fan of his work prior to him jumping on this. I mean, he does so many good things. You were talking about Deceased before we hit the record button. I mean, he did the Superman book with John Kent. He did Injustice. You know, he's done stuff at Marvel. I mean, so much good stuff. So this is something I've been wanting to talk about for a while, and I'm so glad I'm not doing it alone. I'm so glad that you were just down to talk about it.
Me too, man. Because I first read this volume, I want to say roughly about a year ago when I had COVID, and I was feeling like shit, man, and like I was out of work for like almost 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So I was just like I got a bunch of graphic novels and collections I hadn't read before, and I just sat around reading comics, man, and like. This is the one that stood out the most. And like, I'm surprised I didn't even put Nightwing on my pull list at the time. It's just probably something I overlooked, but I've already remedied that situation because I currently am reading Nightwing. So I'm on board for what Tom Taylor has been doing since. But yeah, this volume especially, man, like you're right, it's fantastic. And if you're not sold on Nightwing or Tom Taylor and you buy this, I really don't see how you couldn't be.
This is the perfect book to hand somebody that has like a past, like you, if you know who Nightwing is, even if you didn't really know the character, I think that like just knowing that he's Batman's former sidekick or whatever, or even not
just
knowing
know that he's Robin all grown up is really all the information that you need.
Yeah, and it's such a great entry point. You know, I mean, this book starts on issue 78, I believe is the, I don't want to get that wrong. Yeah, 78 was the first issue. So it's like, but it's basically a number one, you know, and I really love the fact that they didn't. I mean, they probably could have sold more. This is coming from like working in a retail shop. So like, I know that they could have just sold more copies if it was a number one, but people see a 78, they're not sure. Right. But even just from that first cover, because the cover to the collection was the cover to 78. That's a dope cover. That is an amazing cover. And
it's very simple, very striking. You know, you could tell it's something that would stand out on a shelf, like when it's facing out.
Yeah, we sold out day one because all day long, that was when I was working all day in the shops. I was in everybody's ear, buy this book, because, you know, the shop gets the books early. So I already read it like 2 days before it was dropped in the shops. And I got so many people to buy it. And I got so many people coming back and telling me how great it was. And that's like the thing I love the most about working in a shop. That's the thing I love about shops, even when I wasn't working there, is a community in that rapport that you build with people and talking about comics, which is like kind of what we do on a weekly basis when we talk.
Yeah.
Summing up Dick Grayson, all of him, everything that makes him great in that first issue. Like we talked about, like the only thing I guess you would kind of need to know, or maybe not necessary, but like Alfred has died, and he died in Tom King's run. And that's kind of like the thing that sets Dick Grayson on a path. Like I feel like that's going to be the underlying thing, or at least it is in the beginning. You know, it's the underlying thing. So, you know, Batman also has lost his fortune. In turn, like Dick is also not going to have as much money either. And he's back in Bloodhaven, which is where I kind of prefer him. I like him out of
Gotham.
Bloodhaven
has become his city, you know? Like
So I think that was kind of good to bring him back there, because for a while they weren't like utilizing it. And it's clear that Tom Taylor, like throughout this run, is pulling from so many different things from Dick's history. But I want to mention, like, when it opens up, you know, it's Dick Grayson's young, right? He's a kid. He's kind of just, I think probably maybe first year of being with Bruce,
Yeah.
sees a kid being bullied and stands up for him. And you see this young girl and you don't even realize who it is at first. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess you could kind of guess, but like, I think this is retroactive. I don't think that they had this connection prior to this,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that was
It's
cool.
Barbara. Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought that was cool that he kind of threw that in. But watching Dick Grayson stand up and just like, first of all, Bruno Redondo, like the way he choreographs stuff is so great. Like just something as
Yes,
simple
dude.
as this, like you feel the movement there, right? Like you can just,
Yeah. Yeah. You feel like and like there's so many instances while you're reading this that have that kind of like movement to it. Like I want to point out some specific ones
yeah,
and other things he does that are really great. But you're right, man. I really love that retroactive moment. It's a way to introduce Barbara Gordon, right away.
yeah,
So when you meet her later, coming to visit Dick, you know that they have a past connection. Like even if you haven't read Batman comics and don't know that she's Commissioner Gordon's daughter and was Batgirl for a while and is Oracle currently. So and you mentioned Alfred. Like I guess if you want to tell the viewers what the setup is here, like yeah, Alfred died during Tom King's Batman run. I believe he was murdered by Bane,
yeah.
and you find out that Alfred was a billionaire himself. And yeah, and
It's crazy, dude.
he left his fortune to Dick Grayson, and I love that aspect because like Dick Grayson is like wondering like when he's talking to I think he was talking to Barbara, where he's like, like he was a billionaire this whole time, like why was he making me fucking sandwiches and doing my laundry? And Barbara's like, you ever stop to think that maybe that's what he wanted to do, was to take care of you? And it's such a touching moment, and like in a few panels, he's already like added another layer to Alfred, who's already a fantastic character,
Mhm.
and it just shows you what a great writer Tom Taylor is. And you're right, the specter of Alfred hovers around this book as much as Batman, and I love that like you're seeing that Dick has also been influenced and is a product of Alfred as much as he was a product of Bruce. And like the idea that that Alfred had this impact on all these people is amazing. It's like it's a way to really honor that character, which like a lot of people just see as, oh, like he's Batman's funny butler, but like no, like now you see how vital of a character he is. Even when Superman is talking later on about how he's like, I admired Alfred. Like
Yeah, I know that
it's
was
great,
another
man.
great moment. I mean, I think I've always thought Alfred was an important character. I mean,
I
like
Same with me, yeah.
because he's always kind of called Bruce out too on shitty behavior, like
He's the
throughout my
only one
reading,
that, yeah, they're
and
used to, like,
and he gets
yeah,
away with it too. It's not
yeah,
like Bruce ever argues because just like Alfred has been a father figure to Bruce, Alfred has been a father figure to Dick Grayson, and I don't think anybody ever really touches on that. I'm sure it's probably been kind of talked about a
yeah,
little bit, but it's so prevalent here, like so much
yeah,
so that when like Dick gets brought home by Commissioner Gordon, who stopped the fight, Alfred's not even mad about it. He's saying like, you can stand up for people even when you're not in the costume. And that is such a
yeah,
good moment. Like he comes and starts doing dishes and stuff, and Alfred's like, what are you doing? Like, that's my job. And he's like, no. And just like this line of like, Master Bruce may feel you should only be a hero when wearing a costume, but I'm glad Dick Grayson steps up when someone is in need. It takes a different hero to help without a mask. Dude, like it's Tom Taylor dropping bars. You know what I mean? Like just
yeah,
like
yeah.
the way he just hits those. And then I have to talk about this. Look at this amazing, amazing double page spread.
Dude, yeah, it's like a widescreen image. It's like it's very cinematic. The whole run and all the art is completely cinematic. It's like to me, like this is like the bar that you need to judge like mainstream superhero comic book art by, man. Like
Agreed.
it's beautiful, it's clean, but it's still full of energy, and it's like it's art that like again, you're talking about if you want to give a comic to someone that hasn't read a comic, it's so clean and transitions so well from panel to panel and page to page that it's narratively it's very very clear storytelling, but that doesn't mean that it's not inventive, because there's some clever fucking amazing mind-blowing shit being done too, that like you don't it's just it's such great art, because like it balances that like ability to give anyone that doesn't really maybe know the language of comics to be able to read it, but it's still unique and inventive and clever and original, in the way it does. It's like that's the mark of a good artist, man. Like he's able to tell a story that almost anybody could read, if
Yeah.
you're not a comic book fan.
Agreed. Yeah. And like just the introduction of like new characters. I mean, like the dog, I love the addition of like The dog's name is Haley after the Haley circus that Dick's from, but like
Yes,
the nickname is Bitewing, which I think is kind of funny. And then like
I
we
wanted to
have
point that out too, right there.
oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
dude, I mean it's amazing. And we have Blockbuster back in the mix, who's always been a
Yes,
good arch enemy for Dick Grayson, I think. And
yes, I agree.
we introduce a sister, Melinda Zuko, who at first you hear that name Zuko, and that's the dude that killed his parents. So
What a
that's
great bit of
I guess
misdirection.
I'm spoiling stuff, but whatever. I mean, if it's been out long enough,
Yes, correct.
So getting that into the mix, and like he thinks that she's his daughter, but then finding out that really it was his sister, just from his dad and somebody else. But I love that they didn't make it to where his dad was like cheating on his mom. It was
No,
just
it
it
was
happened right
before.
before, because and they
Yeah.
talk about it like his Dick Grayson's parents, like they both liked each other but didn't know that they liked each other, and it wasn't until
Yeah, it was
after.
at the beginning of their career with the circus, and like like they were obviously into each other, but neither of them made a move. And then you find out that that Tony Zuko basically got a mail order bride brought in from I think it was China. Wanted to force her into like being his wife, and he did, and then she ran away. And while they were at the circus, she took the opportunity while there was a crowd and just disappeared. And Dick Grayson's father sort of covers her and helps her. She ends up joining the circus, and they have a brief, a brief romance
Yeah.
before Tony Zuko comes back and takes her, and that's when Melinda is born. And like even though Tony Zuko he knew that wasn't his daughter, he was too much of a fucking prideful asshole to
Yeah.
even want to admit it. So he just said everyone, yeah, this is my girl.
Yeah, so I love that little introduction, like adding all this, like all these new layers to his history, but not in a way that makes it feel like, oh, you're
It's
just doing it to do it,
it
like.
Tom. One of the many things I think Tom Taylor excels at is this sort of like retro what's the word for it now, it's
Retroactive.
escaping, retroactive like stuff that does not feel forced. And like you're almost like, yeah, I could have seen that happening, we just didn't really know about it, just like Dick didn't know about it. Like it's not like forced in at all, man. It's very natural to me. And like it's a great way, it's one of the best ways to write superhero comics, because I mean you have to do that well in order to keep these stories going, because you have not, you're going to be limited by something that happened 40, 50 years ago without being able to move the character forward. But Tom Taylor excels at that. Like, and that's just probably one of the best versions of retroactive like storytelling that I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, and just like going back to Barbara Gordon, creating that connection at a younger point in their lives than I think we've seen before. I know, like in the animated series, it was a little bit more prevalent that they knew each other, but also they made Dick Grayson older at that point in the show. He wasn't
Yeah,
12 like I think he was originally. But I've always been a fan of Barbara and Dick,
same.
not a Starfire and Dick like some people. Like I've had this argument in the shop. Like there's a customer who like Nightwing is probably one of his favorite characters also. And I told him, I'm like, the Barbara and Dick belong together. And he's like, no, it's Starfire. And like every time I see him, that's like we always talk about Nightwing, and like it's always like a not an argument, but you know what I mean? Like it's a conversation we always have. But I love that she's back in the book. She's Oracle again, but she's not just sitting in the chair. I know that at this point there was something that happened with whatever they put into her spine, like to kind of make it so she could walk again. I can't remember what they did because
It was some kind of an implant. Yeah,
yeah. So,
she
but
mentions it in the story.
yeah, but it's not working at 100%. So she doesn't want to like. She wants to be able to walk, so she can't be Batgirl full time. She will do it occasionally, but not like she was before. And the sense of style, dude, just like even the clothing that Bruno Redondo draws too, I have to make mention of too, because like it does
Did you
feel
notice the
very
flat
fresh.
T-shirt she's wearing? The Batman meme with Batman slapping Robin.
Yeah.
She's wearing a T-shirt of it in one scene. You can hardly see it because her jacket's covering, but it's in there, man.
I gotta find
Uh,
that. I didn't notice that, dude. I didn't
yeah,
notice it
yeah,
in this
man.
week. Okay.
It's really awesome. I'll find it. It's I think it's a scene where they're all talking in Dick's apartment.
Okay.
I think it's early on.
Okay. Yeah, and then just before, because I don't want to like forget to mention this, like we talked about, like Alfred leaving the money, but it's the final 2 pages of the book where Barbara's handed the letter to Dick, and that's where he says what he says. And he at the very end of it, this is where it really got me. Everything else is great about that letter, and he says, "I'm so very proud to call you son."
Yes, dude. Yeah,
That's
I got
that's
misty-eyed.
yeah, I got misty eyed. I got chills. Like even after reading it, probably for the third time, because I love this book so much. It's so great to see that. It's so great to see somebody like Dick Grayson. We've talked about it. Like, if he were to be Batman, he's not going to be the same kind of Batman because he doesn't have all that weight of anger and resentment that he's held on to for so many years. He has gotten rid of that. He's a freer hero. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like he's not bogged down by all this by his past. He's able to let it go,
No.
and he's able to be a positive force. And like you said,
He's dealt with his trauma in a healthy way, unlike
yeah,
Bruce, like that never really was able to get over it. Like that's what makes them interesting parallels, is because at their core, Dick Grayson and Bruce Wayne really have the same origin. Their parents were murdered victims of crime, but Dick, because he was a more social person, I think, and like more proactive in being someone that wants to better themselves and not an obsessive, was able to work through that trauma and become a healthier person. And
yeah.
that's what makes him such an interesting character instead of just Batman's sidekick, which is like a clone of him.
Yeah, I gotta show this page too. This is
Dude,
like
I love it. I love it. There's so many. I
it's.
wanted to
I mean,
show like
I
I
could show
love this
every
one
page
too
of
when
this
he's
book,
fighting
dude.
Brutal and Electrocutioner.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, dude. And like I said,
what a use of page layout and like all that stuff, man. Like fantastic work, man.
yeah, and then just like the little things, like so much as like Barbara's basically now his eyes and ears, right? And she gives him this new mask where she can see everything he sees, and that leads to like a couple funny moments where like he's not supposed to be leaving because he might have a concussion, and she's like, "I know you're out there. I can
Yeah,
see what you see." So that's
because
pretty cool.
it's worth mentioning that like at the start of this book, like he's recovering from having been shot in the head in a previous storyline. Yeah, I love that, and he does that. He does that technique a lot, where he uses like the same image and the same paddles in the same panel to like express movement, and it works really well.
Yeah.
It's like you said, it really is sort of like animated when you read it. I
Uh-huh.
also love like these little things. Like I wanted to show like that little image of Barbara, you know what I mean? Like almost like an emoji, like
Yeah.
it's really fun, man.
It is. It is a fun book, dude. And like you kind of mentioned it. It's kind of like a Hawkeye book, like the Fraction Nanaha run, right? Like it's got a little bit of
It's
that in
got to
it,
be
but it's
influenced, but
not
it's not a copy at
definitely
all,
not a
man.
copy. Definitely not a copy. And like you talk about him, you mentioned it the other day when we were talking about like how he really is the heart of the DCU, right? And then to create a villain called Heartless. I had to
Yeah,
mention that. You said that. I'm not gonna take credit for that, but because I
yeah,
didn't connect
yeah,
that until you said it. That's awesome. That's
yeah.
like a really good connection to make.
And it just it makes sense. It makes sense. And then this I don't want to spoil, but like I've already been spoiled. I haven't read as far as you have in Nightwing, so I haven't found out who Heartless is through the narrative. I just got it spoiled by they haven't said who
Did,
he is.
did they say?
But yeah, man. I mean, it like it's just him being like the heart. It's such an awesome idea. It's like creating this villain that just makes like thematic sense now, and especially with what Dick's doing. And I love all these instances where like you see that like how much like Bloodhaven loves Dick. Like you were talking about in our weekly picks video this week about a scene in Batman versus Robin where like Robin puts out a call to Gotham for all of Gotham to like sort of give a little bit of their life force to help save Batman, and it shows you how much that city loves Batman. There's that scene when Heartless has trapped all the orphans that are living in that tent city on the pier, and he blows it the fuck up trying to drown them. And Dick, he's like, he just puts out a call through Oracle to anybody that's out on in the bay in their boat that happens to be from Bloodhaven, and all these people start answering and coming to help. And it's just like,
Yeah.
it's like it shows you that like Bloodhaven also knows that Dick Grayson is a good man, you know.
Yeah.
And I also love how every boat has the name of a previous person that helped create Nightwing. Like
Yeah.
there's a boat called the Devon,
Devin Grayson.
there's a
Yeah.
yeah, the Devon Grayson. They eat pizza at at one point called Marv and George's Pizza, like Marv Wolfman and George Perez,
Yeah.
like
I always love when they do
the
that stuff in comics.
yeah, and Tom Taylor is really cool about that, like like paying these cool little homages to the past, that
Yeah.
shows you that he does care about the character's past, and he's just not trying to erase what came before. He's using all of that to sort of push the narrative forward, man, which is what you want in someone that's going to take over a property that is always ongoing and such a big part of the DCU.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of like honoring the past, like I don't think unless you've read the old Nightwing books, I believe it's Nightwing 17. I could be wrong, but there's an issue of that first run of Nightwing where Tim and Dick are on the train and they're like fighting and they're talking it out, kind of like they do in this issue. And it's almost an homage to that specific issue, like
Yeah.
where they're going through something again and they're talking it out as they're on a fucking moving train. And I love that they did that. I mean, it's not the entire issue, but it is that moment. And it felt like a complete callback to that specific issue. It might have been 19. I
and,
don't know. I could be
and
wrong.
also having when you see Melinda's origin and flashback, I believe it's that sequence is drawn by Rick Leonardi, who's like one of the previous Nightwing pencilers. So like
Yep.
that's a really cool way of bringing in the past too, and like using a different artist like in a clever way that both gives the story the feeling that it is a flashback and also honors the past. Like
I gotta show this cover too. This is like one of my favorite covers that I've ever seen.
yeah, and like I also love the humor in the art, man. Like because we keep talking about how it's very emotional, and it is, man. Because I got misty-eyed a couple of times reading this, and like that
Yeah.
doesn't happen often with mainstream comics. But there's also a humor, like Tom Taylor really excels at creating like a very real feeling family dynamic, you know, between all these characters, between Dick and Barbara, and like the extended Bat family, like Cassandra Cain and Jason Todd. Like I love like at the end when Dick says, hey, I've inherited all this money. I'm gonna use it to create like a fair living wage for anyone living in Bloodhaven. Like all these like fantastic ideas, and like all of that family is texting him and then like I love what Jason Todd says, great move, but don't forget you still owe me $20.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's little things like that like it's such good writing because yeah, it's a throwaway humorous line, but it's very in line with who Jason Todd is, and it's like right there you're even creating more depth for that character in one fucking jokey line, man.
I
Like
agree.
it's
Yeah, dude, that's a good thing to mention too, because like each one of them sends him a message, and like it's so in line with who those characters are, and it does make sense. Like Dick Grayson is the linchpin, not just for the Bat
he's the
family,
big brother to all these people, man.
right? But he is like, and kind of like to the DCU, like he has all these connections in so many different worlds. Even with Superman, how you talked about it, like Superman and him talk, and he says
Yeah.
that Alfred would be proud of you too. It's like,
And I love how when Superman's like, "Hey, listen, I have to go away for a while, and like I'd love for you to sort of, almost asking him to be like a mentor to his son, to John. It's like he could have asked Bruce that, but he didn't. You know what I mean? Because like he knows that I mean, as much as Clark loves Bruce as a friend and like as a and they've been partners forever in various teams, like he knows that Nightwing's true superpower to me is his heart, man.
yep,
Like despite him being like a badass fucking fighter and like acrobatic person and like a very brilliant detective, because there's numerous times where they're like, and he's not so much a detective as he is a problem solver, which is different.
yeah, yeah.
And it's because Dick uses his heart. He thinks with his heart before he does anything else. And again, I keep going back to like the Heartless. Like this is I mean, this is Tom Taylor here is creating stuff that's going to stay with Nightwing forever. Like he's redefining the character, and it all starts here in this book, man.
He's redefining, but not revamping. You know what I mean? Like he's
Yeah,
adding to the
yeah.
lore, but not in a way that it feels like you're doing a drastic redo of anything. You're just adding to it, and you're bringing back out the stuff that makes him special. And
He's highlighting it, man.
yeah, he's
I guess for
highlighting.
like
And it's funny that you mentioned like the Superman thing with like John, like because I forgot in the second volume it explains why, and I totally forgot that moment of why there was a connection between John and Dick Grayson, to at
yeah.
all. I mean, just, I love the reveal too, like the look on Dick Grayson's face when he
Very good,
realizes that's
very
his
good,
sister.
very good. I mean, even the art on that
Facial
subtle level
expression.
is great. Yeah.
Yeah, his facial expressions are really good too. Like, oh, like maybe not Kevin McGuire facial expressions, but like he does. No two characters look the same either. Like they
No,
all have
no,
very
yeah.
distinct looks to them.
I mean, and
Yeah,
like I also love this final image of Heartless with that jar of hearts. I mean, it's so like creepy, man. Like
it
it's
is creepy. Yeah.
like just the idea that this guy is sitting there with all these jars filled with human hearts, like it's fucking fucked up, man. You know, like
And I like that, like the fact that he's starting, like, well, this is a great moment too. I mean, this one made me smile, like knowing
yeah,
that
dude, yeah,
like they're gonna be back in each other's lives. And then after he makes that, like when he's saying the speech and he's starting the Alfred Pennyworth Foundation, like what a
yes,
great way to honor him. Like, because Dick Grayson's like, dude, he grew up in a circus, dude. Like the money to him, and it's always been prevalent throughout the history of the character. He doesn't give a shit about money. That's not who he is.
no,
Like he
yeah,
left, he left Bruce and he went to Bloodhaven to make it on his own. He became a cop,
yeah,
and all that stuff and everything that makes him special is in this first volume. Like it hits on so many different notes of like the character, and everything is exactly in line with what we've always known about him. Like to give, like I don't know how much money he gave away. Like obviously he has to keep something to like live,
to
but
live, yeah,
he builds all these foundations, and now leading into like what's going to take place currently in the Nightwing book. Like for anybody that's been paying attention, like Justice League is gone. Titans is going to be the new premier team. And where's Titans Tower going to be? It's going to be in fucking Bloodhaven. Like,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just
Because I
so
know
cool.
the original Titans Tower was destroyed by I think Deathstroke, right, and a bunch of people.
Yeah. So it's just cool to see like Nightwing really being in the forefront of what DC's doing now. And it all started here. Like this buildup of Dick Grayson has been going on for like, I mean, what issue 101 just came out. So this is like 23 issues, almost 2 years of like this buildup of Dick Grayson, along with what they did with him in Dark Crisis. I'm trying not to talk about the second volume because there's a lot of stuff in that second volume that just kind of just like continues to just level this book up.
Yeah, yeah.
I
I'm
mean,
really looking forward to getting it. You know, and
there's
starting
one
it.
issue where it's one continuous image that just flows from page to page. So when you turn, like it just keeps going and
I
going.
read about that issue because I mean a lot of people were talking about it, like even on the fucking Comics Journal, which is like I mean I love all kind of comics criticism, but they're very
They're
very
like top
picky
of the
about.
line. Yeah, they're like
Yeah,
top
yeah.
of the line.
And they've even talked about the work that's been done in Nightwing, like artistically, because it is, like I said, like the best example of superhero work that's still stylized, but like not just focused on like like big double sprayed panels of like people punching each other and stuff. Like they and even though they do change, I believe they change artists in for some of the arcs, right? I haven't read ahead yet,
I
so
mean, for the most part, it's Bruno Redondo. For the
okay,
majority
good.
of it. I mean, I think that Travis Moore does a little bit. I don't know,
Yeah,
but the
Travis
art
Moore, I think did 101, the
yes, but the
recent one.
art, but the art style for the most part is really consistent. It's not jarring like this. Like it all looks really good. Not to say I don't like the other artists, but like I prefer Bruno Redondo on the art because like I just
Yeah,
feel like him and Tom Taylor have a really good working chemistry.
yeah,
And but I think that throughout it is always a beautiful book to look at. It's always a well written book. I mean, there's no filler issues at all. Like all of it is good, dude, and it amps up with the second volume. I mean, the second volume that just came out a couple of weeks back, it takes place after the Fear State, but the Fear State tie-in was good, but it sucks that it kind of was like shoehorned in because like all the Bat books always have to cross over whenever they have an event.
yeah.
But
Whenever they have the big event, yeah.
it has been my favorite fucking DC book, favorite superhero book since it started coming out. The only other book that has come close is Daredevil by Chip Zdarsky. Like that might be the only one, or like or at times it's tied. But this is what I was waiting for such a long time. Like I did not read Nightwing for like years, dude, because I just like I'm like I can't bring myself to
Yeah,
read this. It's not what I want to read. And I'm like I said, second volume is great. Every issue preceding this first volume is great. So if you're not reading it, I know that they're all in print. I know they had to do a second printing of the hardcover because that's sold out. And
oh wow.
Like the one I have is the second printing, because I remember ordering it from some like random bookshop online because I couldn't get it at the shop, and I had to wait and wait and wait, and then finally when I was reading it this time, I saw that it was the second printing. It's not even the first. So there's 2 volumes out. There's the Fear State collection also that's out as well. And if you've fucking heard us talking about the 100th, or heard me talking about the 100th issue, I mean, I got you to start picking up Nightwing. So
Yeah, yeah.
hopefully we get more people to pick this book up too, because it's next. Like it feels kind of like an indie book too, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
It feels
dude,
like
really does.
it feels like you could take the entire Bat history out and just put other like names to the
And he's
characters,
just
and it would still
yeah,
be just
yeah.
as
He's
good.
just like his own character named Nightwing, and he's like a vigilante, and it works on like you don't need to really, like I said, you don't need to be like a seasoned like comic book reader to enjoy it, man. And that's what's great about Tom Taylor is that I think it's something a lot of creators have said. It might go back to Jim Shooter originally, but like the thought that like every comic might be somebody's first, you
Yeah,
know? So you want to like be able to balance that with the people that have been reading it for their entire lives. And bro, Tom Taylor does that, you know?
yeah.
He does it repeatedly.
I
I
feel
mean,
like it's
look at this volume. It's like he retells Dick's origin by introducing his sister. So he's retelling the origin, adding to it, creating a new villain, and all of it just works like in a synchronicity that you don't see often, man. It's like it's top tier superhero comic books, man.
yeah, I
Can't
totally
recommend it
agree.
enough.
For such a long time, like you couldn't really, if I'm being honest, you couldn't really pick up a random issue of something because it was always in the middle of a story arc, and it's not
Mm-hmm.
like there's like previously in. Like I don't want like the first 2 pages being recap either, like where the characters themselves are telling you what happened, like that used to
Mm-hmm.
happen in like the 60s and 70s. But I do think there is a way to do it to where it's not so jarring for people if they do pick up a random issue, and this is a good
Yes.
example of how to do it. But I mean, I'm talking about like the 2000s, dude. Like when books started being written for the trade, and you could feel it with certain stories like this decompressed storytelling, that
Mm-hmm.
some of it I liked, but some of it, like now that I look at it now, it feels kind of dated. It does feel like that's kind of where comics have moved past. But
Yeah.
this is, and I don't know if I said it in the recording, but this book should have won an Eisner. I don't
Yes,
know.
I agree.
I don't know how it didn't, because there are superhero books that get nominated and win. I mean, Zdarsky's Daredevil won, right? Like this is a book
Yeah.
that should have been nominated for sure. But if you haven't, you need to rectify that. Go pick it up. Get it at your shop. Go support your local comic shop. Ask them to order it for you, because I know they can get it. Then catch up on all the issues, because this is an amazing adventure to be on with an amazing character, an amazing creative team.
I agree, man. I completely agree.
All right. Well, that's all I got on Nightwing. If you're not already following us, make sure you follow us. Make sure Manny's links all down below. Comic Lounge links down below as well. Hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you're notified every time a new vid goes up. And on that note, we're out.
See you next time, guys.